one of the major drawback in our education system was every state had their own education policies. Every state had their education department, education ministry, but unfortunately there was no Ministry of Education in central government. So the education was under Human Resource Development Ministry, which is the MHRD, Ministry of Human Resource Development. So another suggestion was to change the name of MHRD. So that has also been accepted. Just one second. Okay, so that suggestion was also accepted, and the name of Ministry of Human Resource Development is now changed to Ministry of Education. So now we have an education ministry on central level, which will govern the education policy throughout the country. That is one of the achievement. Another is, so first education policy in India was formed in 1968, and then there were some amendments in the new education policy which came in 1986. And from 1986 onwards, there were no major changes in the education policies, except that some changes took place in 1992, which is not a new education policy, but some amendments in the education policy of 1986. So from 1986 to 2020, 34 years, we were following the same old education policy, and therefore a new education policy was very much mandatory because the world has drastically changed in last 34 years. And instead of naming it new education policy, it was named a national education policy, because this education policy will be same for all the states in our country, Bharat. So it is named as National Education Policy. It rolled out in 2019 by Dr. Kasturirangan Committee. And another very appreciative step was that this education policy was not just an outcome by the policymakers or the committee headed by Dr. Kasturirangan, but after their recommendation, each and every citizen of India was invited to give their suggestions. So just one second. So from January 2019 to October 2019, for 10 months, the draft of National Education Policy was rolled out, and suggestions on that draft were sought by all the citizens of India. It was an open suggestion forum where everyone can give their suggestions, and specifically for all the panchayats, they especially invited all the panchayats to give their suggestions. They invited 2.5 lakh gram panchayats, and I know from Indore, I participated in 4 different forums where we discussed about the draft on National Education Policy and what is good about it and what further suggestions we need. And on the My Government portal, I have also posted some of the suggestions. And of course, all those suggestions most of them were already there, and then they were included. So we cannot say that my suggestions are included, because it is not that any individual suggestions were taken care, but similar to what an individual has suggested or similar to what I have suggested, many other people, thousands of more, have suggested the same way, and based on that, it was included. We welcome the National Education Policy 2020 in Gauranga Gurukulam, because many of you have attended the seminars that we are conducting for last 3 years on truly education, where we were talking about most of these things which are being included in national education policy. So when we will discuss the various aspects of NEP to 2020, I will also relate that with what we are already doing in Gauranga Gurukulam. And apart from the aspects which are included in NEP, there are more aspects which we are following in Gauranga Gurukulam which are not included in NEP, but we expect, because this is the beginning, this is the first step in reforms in education in India. In future, in due course of time, the other aspects will also be included so that the education will become truly education throughout India. Another thing I want to say is, as we know that any policy, so for, if we know in India, there are thousands of policies, right? But the effectiveness of any policy depends on its implementation. Just for example, in 2009, CBSE came up with CCE, Continuous and Comprehensive Evaluation, and by God's grace, I am very happy that in 2009 April, I completed my research on Youth Development Program, a Practical Learning Stance. And in 2009 September, CBSE has come up with CCE, Continuous and Comprehensive Evaluation, including practical aspects in education system. Before that, our complete education from primary to university level, it was just theoretically based, whether the person has knowledge about any subject or not. But if the student is able to write by mugging up or by any means in the paper, they were certified with golden marks, irrespective of their actual knowledge. So that was one of the major drawback in our education system. And in our project in Youth Development Program, a Practical Learning Stance, we focused on practical application of knowledge. We studied about 25 areas in which students, after completing their university education also, after completing their PhD also, they were lacking in those 25 areas which were required for full participation in the society, which are required for our day-to-day life. And then we identified 50 methods through which those knowledge and skills can be provided to the students. And then we designed a curriculum and a complete education scheme which was implemented in Gauranga Institute in 2014 and then in Gauranga Gurukulam in 2018 onwards. So CBSE launched CCE. They recognized the importance of practical education, but it was a policy. For practical implementation of that policy, even till today, till 10 years now, from 2009 to 2019, we know that many of these schools, although they have in their mark sheet assessment based on CCE, but in students, that outcome of CCE is not reflected because on ground level, it is not implemented properly. So any policy, its effectiveness is based on the implementation. So most of the aspects of NEP 2020 are very appreciative. They are very much required for future generation, because the foundation of any society, foundation of culture, foundation of civilization is based on education. The kind of education we give to our children, that determines how will be the future of our society. So those reforms in education were very much required, and that has been included with the help of, with the suggestions of every citizen. And now it depends on how it is being implemented. Of course, the implementation will take time. In NEP itself, It is a plan for 25 years for complete implementation. And as we know that every project takes time. If on paper we are planning for 25 years, so practically it may go for 30 to 35 years, but at least the first step we have taken. We have started to take steps towards the required education reforms. So let's discuss some of the aspects of NEP 2020. So this education policy talks about school education, talks about higher education, and talks about some of the regulations, regulatory bodies for education system throughout the country. But today we will just focus on school education because most of us are concerned about school education. And if you have some questions or you want some discussion on other aspects of NEP, then you are most welcome. You can raise the query and we will discuss on that. So the first major aspect of school education is the inclusion of ECCE, that is early childhood care and education. So as you were saying, the system is changed to 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4. That means the education of a child will begin from very birth. From 0 to 3 years, the child will learn at home from their parents, and the parents will be trained by some of the system which is not still defined, but the provision is included in the education policy that parents will be trained to educate the children from 0 to 3 years at home. From 3 years onwards, they will be a part of formal education. So as we know, till now, the formal education was beginning from first standard, and before that there was pre-primary, which was not a part of formal education, but most of the children, especially in cities and metros, they were going to pre-primary like nursery and kindergarten. So those levels are also included in formal education now, and that is termed as early childhood care education. So from 3 years, so nursery, KG1, KG2, first and second, these are the first 5 years, and the pedagogy for these 5 years will be same. And this will be focused on learning the foundations of literacy and numeracy. So there will be a national mission on foundational literacy and numeracy. So as we were talking in Truly Education, that education should be meaningful and purposeful, which was not there till now. Till now, we were learning so many things in our curriculum which are not relevant in our day-to-day life. Many things which we learned in schools, but we never got an opportunity to implement in our day-to-day life because that was very irrelevant. So now the focus is on meaningful and purposeful education. So for first 5 years, from 3 years onwards, the focus will be on making a foundation for literacy and numeracy skills, which is practically based, not otherwise. Then the next 3 years, from 3rd, 4th, and 5th, the pedagogical structure will change, and it will be same for the 3 years, 3rd, 4th, and 5th. Then another 3 years, so the first 5 years are foundations, and the next 3 years is preparatory, and the next 3 years from 6th to 8th will be middle school. So again, for these 3 years, methodology will be different from the 5 plus 3, but it will remain same for 6 to 8. And then again, the methodology will change from 9th onwards, and from 9th to 12th, they will follow same pedagogical structure. So another change will be in board exams. The board exam, the value of board exams will reduce. So we will discuss on that in the next slide. In 11th and 12th, the earlier system was we have to choose a subject, and there was a rigid separation in those subjects. Like if someone has taken subjects of arts, so they will have a particular set of subjects which they can study, like geography, history, civics, and languages, but they cannot study physics, chemistry, biology, or mathematics. So there was a rigid separation in the disciplines in board exams like 11th and 12th. There were streams, but now there will be no rigid separation, no separate streams, and the students will be able to choose any subject of their choice. That means there can be a combination of learning cooking with music, with physics, with business studies. That means there can be a combination of some subjects of arts, some subjects of science, some subjects of commerce with vocational subjects. So in total, from 9th to 12th, there will be 40 credits, and out of those 40 credits, 15 credits will be compulsory for vocational skills. So by the time student will pass from school education, pass from 12th standard, they will be having some skill set, some vocational skills, and the knowledge of subjects of their own choice in which they want to make career. So when it will be according to their interest, according to their psychophysical nature, definitely they will excel in their career. So this is one of the major reform. Then there will be education of gifted children. This will be specially focused. Gifted children in two sense, those who are Divyangjan, they are physically specially gifted, and those who are economically, so coming from economically weaker section. For both of these sections, there will be special education, and there will be gender inclusion fund, especially to promote education for girl child. So because most of us are from cities, we don't find a problem in girl education, but still if we go out and see the other part of the society, there are so many families, a large number of families which are not sending girls to school. So for their inclusion, separate fund is created. And then there will be new national curriculum framework for ECE, that is early childhood education, for school, for teachers, and for adult education. As I said, board exam will be on low stake, and the board exams will be only based on knowledge application. It will not be based on dumping of information, mugging up and writing in the exam, but it will be more based on knowledge application, which is the practical application of knowledge. And the board exam will have two sections. The portion of objective questions will increase. So one section will be objective and one section will be descriptive. And there will be use of technology, which will play a major role. So we will discuss on that further. Then another welcoming step is the medium of instruction till grade 5 will be in mother tongue or regional tongue or the national language, that is Hindi or the mother tongue of that individual or the regional language of that area. So till now, the medium of instruction which was most popular was English, and English will now onwards will only be a subject, not more than that. It will not be a medium of instruction, at least till grade 5. Another very important major reform is 360-degree holistic progress card. So this is very interesting, and this is what we are already implementing in Gauranga Gurukulam. There will be self-assessment. So parents already know that what we are doing. Children are given opportunity to assess themselves, what they are doing and what they are not doing. Then they will be assessed by peers, their classmates, their co-educators, co-learners, and they will assess what they are doing and what they are not doing. So it is not about the concepts of subjects, but it is about practical application of what we are learning. And then there will be evaluation by teacher. So it will be 360-degree holistic assessment based on self-assessment, peer assessment, and teacher assessment. Then tracking student progress for achieving learning outcomes. So all this data will be available online. That means the progress card of the child will be available online, what they are doing, what kind of skills they are learning, what kind of concepts they have mastered. So when they will come on the stage to decide in which stream they want to make their career, what discipline they want to choose for higher education. So they will be having their whole previous record available with their DigiLocker in the form of the digital database, that what skills they have learned, what concept they have mastered, where they have performed, to which standard. And for doing that, there will be a National Assessment Center, which is named as Parakh. So Parakh is actually Performance Assessment Review Analysis of Knowledge for Holistic Development. So this is going to play a major role. And then after completing school education, for taking admission to higher educational institutes, there will be common entrance test by National Testing Agency. So as some of you already know that NTA is already in force, conducting so many exams. So NTA will be the nodal agency for conducting common entrance exams for most of the higher education institutes for taking admission in colleges.